and welcome to this episode of Middle Age Geeks, your podcast where we talk about news and reviews for movies, video games, comics, anything else that we feel like talking about in any given week. My name is Phil, I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusty co-host, Daz. Daz, how are you?
I'm very good, my man. Very good. Looking forward to this week's episode. It's a good movie and some good news, bits and bobs to get through as well. So yeah, it's good. How are you, man?
Yeah, I think, so this week, for people listening at home, we'll do our usual news and our reaction to news and stuff at the start. And then we'll talk about what we've been playing and watching. And then we'll move on to this week's kind of main feature, which is a review of 2023's Dream Scenario. So we kind of thought we'd do this because if for those of you who have been listening for a while, we had planned to do this before Christmas when it came out. But unfortunately, the 2 times a day that it was out, it was just finishing up in the cinema, I think, wasn't it, Des? Or was it?
Yeah.
Whatever the times we missed it, so we ended up doing a different movie instead. So we just figured, look, let's go back. We both wanted to watch it. Once again, another plug for A24. By the studios. We were both excited to see it and thought we'd give it a review. So Daz will talk us through that. But Daz, why don't you give us a bit, let me know what kind of jumped out for you in the news this week.
Well, one of the main bits was Assassin's Creed Shadows trailer dropped, the CGI trailer, or the story trailer, which Ubisoft are always really good at these particular trailers. It's not really a lot of gameplay or anything, but it's finally set in feudal Japan, which fans of the series have been asking for about a decade now. I thought the trailer was really good. It's like kind of like 2 playable characters, and it looks like you'll probably play both of them you'll probably switch between both of them because they both seem to be heavily involved in the story. Not like Assassin's Creed Odyssey where you could pick the male or female character and go through the whole game as that. But I think it just looked really good. I'm really excited for it. There's been a bit of online uproar over the characters. One of the characters of it is a female Asian lady, and the other character is a warrior, but he's a black character in it, and there's uproar over the fact that it should be an Asian person, even though apparently this character is based on a real person from around that time, apparently.
Yeah, like the guy's name is Yasuke, and you might see it every so people will pop up and post the pictures of this famous, the only ever black samurai.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that he wasn't actually a samurai. Like, it's one of these common myths that he worked for the shogun, but he was essentially one of his many kind of servants. But he was granted, he was probably stuck out like a sore thumb. He was like all that kind of stuff, and he worked for the shogun, but he didn't see battle. He wasn't any of that kind of stuff. But the interesting arguments then online come up because some people are saying, like, okay, he wasn't a samurai. Why are you playing him in the game?
Yeah.
So they're complaining about the inaccuracy, say. And then, they're being called racist. Well, you're fucking just, why can't a black guy be in it? But then the other side are saying, well, isn't it a cultural appropriation then? Like, you finally made a Japanese game. Why are you picking out the one black person that and that's it? That's around that you can squeeze into the story by changing his history. And I mean, look, fuck, I've no dog in this fight. It doesn't offend me either way. I think I still think it'll be a cool ass game, but it is surprising though. I mean, I think the game is Assassin's Creed. It's about the blending in and the working in the shadows and stuff. And this guy is this standout as the only black dude around, and and not to be stereotypical, but like he's probably taller than everybody else as well. So to kind of have this guy kind of like, I'm pretty sure I spotted the guy. He looked exactly like you. The only black dude around. And it was a weird choice, I think, but at the same time, I mean, the game's going to be great. Assassin's Creed games are great. I'm sure the story will be fucking well done. It'll be well acted. I think that people are just, yourself, people want something to complain about because
absolutely.
Yeah, the same people who would complain about, the racism side of it are the same people that would complain about the cultural appropriation, usually, but then some people seem to have picked one or the other, so they're kind of arguing against the usual stuff. So it's just, like it's caused a bit of an uproar online. I'm just glad that the uproar for a change isn't because it's a woman character.
Yeah, exactly. And it does look good. I'd be interested to see some gameplay of it, but I loved AC or Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like put in well over 100 hours in that game. Still haven't finished it. You know, it's Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I'm really, really fond of that franchise, and the fact that it's coming out this year as well, like November this year. I love the way they do that. They kind of go, here's a story trailer, and it's coming out in like 4 or 5 months. We just go, that's brilliant, rather than just, it's coming out in 3 years or something, which most companies fucking do. But
this is Assassin's Creed, though. These are they're fucking able to churn them out. I'm always amazed by how quickly they can bring these things out, and the fact that, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, the use of AI. This is only a reason for them to be able to do it even quicker.
Yeah.
Some of your, like you've said, you mentioned as in another episode about voices being done, entirely by AI, and for certain characters in the game, definitely ought to be seeing that. Because you can just eventually AI will be able to approximate the voice of someone incredibly famous without actually being the voice. So you're not
absolutely
having to pay that person any royalties, but it'll still sound like that. Oh, I love that cool Morgan Freeman voice. And someone gets
an AI
that sounds exactly like him, but it's not exactly him, so you can't sue us. But you're getting that gravitas and a thing that everybody knows automatically what that voice is,
if you just tell the AI, can we have a Morgan Freeman with an Irish accent or something? Just see what fucking monstrosity comes out of it. But yeah, that was that was one news story, and another one that actually tied into a bit of feedback that we got from Gene in Dublin, who asked us whether we were going to be reviewing Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola's kind of magnum opus that is releasing at some stage this year. The trailer was released for it, which is suitably bonkers. It's bananas trailer. It's obviously starring Adam Driver, Shia LaBeouf, Lawrence Fishburne. But yeah, it's more the situation behind this movie. Like Francis Ford Coppola has been developing this for nigh on 40 plus years, and he couldn't get funding for it, so he sold off his wine collection or his vineyards or something like this to raise 120 million to self-fund it, which is fucking bananas. But then, this is not a good sign, but he wasn't able to secure any distribution for the movie. It reportedly had some poor screenings. Like even Netflix turned it down. I was like, Netflix, they gave fucking our good buddy friend of the show, Zack Snyder, 160 million for Rebel Moon. And that's one. I got another 2 Zack Snyder comments. But they, it's just crazy that Netflix even turned it down. Like, and look, I love Coppola's early work, Godfather and Apocalypse Now, or genre-defining works of art, but it hasn't really had a hit in quite some time. Maybe even since Dracula back in '92 or something. It was kind of mixed reviews. But I thought the trailer for Megalopolis looked pretty nonsensical. It looked very digital as well. It's a mishmash of visuals and crazy cinematography, mad concepts. It was a very surreal look and feel, but it gave me kind of Terrence Malick Tree of Life vibes, which I absolutely hated. And I do fear that this maybe a personal project, fueled with kind of pretentious nonsense. Who knows? But he brought it to Cannes and apparently got its 7-minute standing ovation, but still hasn't got a global distribution deal for it. So he says it's coming in 2024 or 25. Did you see the trailer at all?
But no, I didn't watch it. But I wonder about the distribution thing, because I mean, obviously, if you're trying to get funding for someone, these are the people that are taking the risk. Mm-hmm. But for the distribution, people distributing, they're taking much less of a risk on it if you've already fronted the cash by selling off stuff and privately funding it. The fact that even with that they still won't do it is a bit weird.
Like I think he was asking companies to commit to, it's called like a P&A, print and advertising campaign of like 100 million, and then they get 50% of the movie's revenue or something like that. But that's still, it's, people are obviously looking at going, is this going to recoup? Are we going to make back 100 million and then some from this? Yeah. And, even if they found it to be good or interesting, it's some of the reviews are quite polarizing. Like IGN give it a 9, even though the review seems to mention that it's very convoluted and like they mention several negatives about it, like very, very, very heavy negatives, but then give it a 9. And it's like,
give it a 9, yeah.
Is that somebody who just loves, Apocalypse Now, But I'm very interested to see when and where this comes out, because Francis Ford Coppola has been openly against kind of streaming companies and stuff like that. I think it's kind of taken away from cinema and the major movie production houses. But he might have to release it on, Apple or Netflix or something like that. But
Oh,
even them,
he'd be sick if he
it'd be
had to eat
sick.
crow on that, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. But even they said no, and it's like you wonder, did they say no because he's had a go with them in the past? I don't know, but yeah, it could be absolutely amazing, or it could be one of the most monumental flops in history. The opposite to like when Mel Gibson did Passion of the Christ and made fucking, how much of money he made from that. But be interested to see how it transpires. Any news yourself?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like as as anybody who's listened to this podcast has heard us mention multiple times, we're big fans of The Last of Us, the game and the TV show. So just to see some of the kind of leaked set photos this week.
Yeah.
That was like it's interesting because you can see like Dina and stuff in them. So I'm still kind of wondering whereabouts it is. Like obviously it's going to be over the next 2 seasons that we'll get to see everything. But like I'm looking forward to it. Like I'm excited to see that so much of it is it's being filmed. You see some of the sets and the streets have been shut down and I've liked the casting so far. Like we mentioned Tati Gabrielle when we were doing the Uncharted episode. Like she's probably one of the better parts in that.
Yep,
in that movie. So she's playing Nora. And then Caitlin Dever, who's just fucking fantastic. I love her. She's playing Abby. So I'd say she's fucking hitting the gym. But it should be interesting. I wonder will they have her as so buff? Because that was one of the people will complain about fucking anything, but people were giving out about the fact that she was absolutely ripped. Like she was fucking bulky shoulders, like the character of Abby, and people are like, oh, she's too muscular, which I just don't understand. And like I don't know. Forget it. Anyway, look, the point. Yeah, I'm wondering will that be a thing? Will they decide to keep that true to that and ask Caitlin Dever to get fucking fully bulked up, or will she just be like super toned and just look fit?
Well, that's the thing. Like Abby in the game, it's one of those believable elements about her character and her physicality that she can do what she's doing. Some of the more suspension of disbelief is when you have Ellie going around and fighting these guys twice her size and twice her weight, and not being pulverized. But when Abby's doing it, it really does. Yeah, it does work. But I don't know if an actress is going to go to that length to bulk up that much for a role. I don't know.
It'd be a lot. You know what I mean? She's not Christian Bale here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think she's fantastic. I remember seeing her way back for the first time in like Justified and thought she was great. Yeah. And then when she did that Unbelievable, the bit with the girl wasn't believed when she reported being sexually assaulted and stuff, like she was fantastic in that. Book smart, she's fucking great in that. Like I'm just a fan. And the other thing I wanted to mention is in the realm of the MCU. Or at least the Marvel universe, I'm there's some stuff on the horizon that's making me hopeful for that it might get back on track. And I'm so like Fantastic Four for me, the casting so far is great.
Yeah,
and Ralph Ineson is going to be playing Galactus, which is cool.
That's so good.
Galactus was in Rise of the Silver Surfer, but he wasn't really the Galactus that we know. So people might know Ralph Ineson from like The Witch and the Harry Potter movies and the Northman. And John Malkovich is supposed to be in it as well, but I don't know who he's playing. All
bets are on that movie to save it, really. That and Deadpool.
I think that and Deadpool. Yeah, Deadpool should be. I'm interested to see what they do with Deadpool. I'd love if they put Gwenpool in it because they're featuring obviously different fucking universe. You can see Dogpool is in it and all this stuff. So I'd love it if they had Gwenpool in it as well. And because this is the thing, like in the other movies, the Deadpool movies, they've got some of the characters from the comics in the Deadpool comics, but they haven't. They're not this. They have the name, but they're not the full character. Like Bob that he sees is Hydra Bob. His Mrs. Vanessa Carlyle, in the comics is like a mutant called Copycat. She can. So it's. I don't know if they'll go the full way with it, but I can't wait for that. It's only a couple of months away as well, which is great.
Happy days.
So with that with that bit out of the way, then why don't we move on to what we've kind of been playing and watching this week? Have you been getting into that new, Daz?
Not so much new. Gaming wise, I got back into FIFA a little bit because it's always the usual end of the real football season, ending in misery. You start a new football season to get over the fucking torture of being a United fan this day and age. Been
Yeah.
playing a bit more Dave the Diver. That's my just pick up and play, get half an hour in here and there. It's still brilliant. I'm still getting new bits and pieces revealed and new game mechanics all the time. I'm discovered like an underwater land of sea people, and doing jobs for them now and traveling there through a magic mirror, and just going, where the fuck, what's happening with this fucking game? I've loads of staff members in the sushi restaurant, and it's amazing game, and I hope it never ends. What I have been watching, nothing really new. I've got stuck back into. I'm in a Rob McElhenney binge with Welcome to Wrexham season 2. Started back, and also Mythic Quest. I don't know if you ever watched Mythic Quest.
I never watched
season
Mythic
3
Quest.
of this.
No,
I fucking love it.
no,
it's one of my favorites.
It's one of those ones people are always talking about, and I haven't gone around to yet.
Oh, it's great. It's it's I think it's season 3 now. It just it hits that kind of community TV show vibe in terms of like the writing and comedic feel of it.
Yeah.
It's just fucking great. But that's been pretty much it. It's been a kind of a slow week gaming and watching wise. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty just a lot of work this week, so I haven't gotten around to do a whole lot. I watched a few movies. I watched the Man United 99 thing, the new yoke on Prime. It's great. Yeah. It's good. Like it's just 25 years ago. You kind of sometimes I roll my eyes a little bit that we're people hanging on to like past glories and stuff. And like, oh come on! But the fact that it is the 25th anniversary and it's good to hear some new info and stuff. So it's good. I watched a few horror movies. God, they were terrible. What was it? Invitation? Because I missed it when it was in the cinema and it just came on Netflix. Nathalie Emmanuel and stuff. It's fucking shite. It's bad. It's not just bad, it's boring. I don't mind a bad horror movie if I can have a laugh at it, like we've done that on here with the likes of fucking Five Nights at Freddy's. Like I would happily watch that again because it's a bad movie for so many reasons, but it's thoroughly enjoyable. Whereas this is just bad. Playing wise, I like yourself, I've kind of been dipping into some old stuff. I think I'm back into Game Pass because I'd let it expire. But I think because I've barely touched my Xbox, but with Hellblade 2 coming out this week, I was shit, I better go and get myself ranked. So I jumped on and just started popping back in and out of some old games I hadn't played in a while. So that was cool. And then just reading a few comics and being a kind of quiet enough week. All right, well, look, with that out of the way, why don't we jump over into the main section, which is our movie review, and Daz is going to take us through that. So, Daz, whenever you're ready.
Super duper. Cheers, man. So, this week we have Dream Scenario, starring Nicolas Cage and written and directed by Christopher Borgli, who I think this is his English film debut. Distributed by A24, who we're big fans of and are really becoming a name for releasing some remarkable content. The film stars Nicolas Cage and he plays Paul Matthews, who is an evolutionary professor who begins to unwittingly appear in random people's dreams. And this elevates alarmingly, and his newfound fame takes a distressing turn as appearance in these dreams goes from pedestrian to rather violent. And this affects his professional and personal life in disastrous ways, and everything around him begins to gloriously unravel. I loved this film. Absolutely loved this film. We'll say before, I don't know if we'll worry too much about spoilers, will we, this week? Or will we?
Well, I suppose you've given the general synopsis. We can say whether we're into it or not before we get stuck in. But it
is 6 months old. But we'll give our general views and then we'll get into kind of spoiler heavy. But I love this movie. I thought it was a brilliantly mad movie, featuring a simply fantastic performance from Nicolas Cage. A very un-Nicolas Cage performance, just so understated and so controlled and not that manic at all. And I actually haven't seen some of Nick Cage's recent work, which he's been applauded for greatly. I haven't kept up to date. I need to go back and watch some of them because this movie reminded me how amazing he is, and I think it's an acting masterclass on how to underplay a character and
Mm.
yet being completely mesmerizing at the same time. And I love these type of movies where it's played so straight, even though it's fantastical elements are everywhere around. In terms of the dreams and the general premise, it kind of has shades of prime Charlie Kaufman, and yeah, it was reminded me of something like adaptation or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just love when movies play that fantastical stuff as just a real life, grounded life. Um, how about yourself? What were your first thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really share your enthusiasm for it. Like
Mm,
I enjoyed it, for the most part. But I think
yeah,
when I was looking back through my notes to make sure I had everything in order, I realized that pretty much all of my notes were around how great Nicolas Cage is in the movie, rather
yeah,
than how much I actually enjoyed the movie itself. I
mm,
felt that there was no really big scenes that jumped out that I went, "Oh, that's a great scene." It
yeah,
was more just that was a great little thing that he did, or it's a small little, very very small self-contained thing.
mm,
And I found towards the end of the movie to be so unfulfilling. Like I think
really, yeah,
it starts off as so intriguing. The
mm,
idea for it is fantastic. It actually comes from that. There's a website, everdreamthisman.com or whatever it is. And it's about people who connecting people who all say they've seen the same dude in their dream.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
an
yeah,
actual real website. Um, and I get it. It's really really cool, but for me, I don't know. I found there was a lot of kind of low hanging fruit digs at our current social media, and both
mm,
on the right and on the left. I didn't find them to be very clever or original, but his performance and Julianne Nicholson's performance are excellent. I would love to see
yeah.
even more of her, but like you can't take your eyes off him in this
He's
movie.
incredible.
He's just fantastic. Like, and it's hard to describe. Like Nicolas Cage, we're so used to him being fucking over the top,
Mm,
and like you said, it's him. He's basically playing a stuffy professor who's
yeah,
got an inferiority complex, and
mm,
to see him play this down of this kind of more meek person being thrown into fame, was just I was enthralled by him, and I think that he was what I
mm,
really enjoyed, and I love the idea of it. I just don't think that the movie lives up to the idea that it kind of presents. Um, but like again, I'm not. I did enjoy the movie. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy it. It's just I was a
yeah.
little underwhelmed.
Yeah, I totally understand what you said. Into like there are a few digs towards the end, the last kind of act of it starts to just kind of try to tell too many things. I think at times, but I was enthralled with the acting. I thought the writing was actually very clever for the most part. Um, it's very hard to not focus on Nicolas Cage because every time he's in a scene, you could kind of try and put somebody else in this movie, and I think it loses a star for me straight away, which is sometimes that's not a good that's not a good sign. But yeah, no, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Um, we could get into some spoilerific stuff now if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
We
If you
will.
want to take us through from the start, I guess, and we're
Yeah,
just going to jump in the scene or
mm,
whatever way you want to do it.
we'll just skip through it. Yeah. Well, we open on a wide shot in the back garden in autumn, and I think it's a suitably bonkers opening scene where we have a girl chilling on a lounger while Nicolas Cage is just sweeping up leaves in the background. And suddenly, like a pair of keys fall from the sky, and then a shoe falls into the swimming pool, followed by a body. And the girl is obviously reacts at this in shock, but Nicolas Cage's character just looking around, just sweeping, just not bothering him. And then the girl just starts to kind of float up out of the sky, and then you realize it's of course a dream, and we're in the kitchen of Nicolas Cage and his family, and his daughter is telling him about the dream, and Nicolas Cage is wondering why he didn't do anything to help her, and he's like, you can see how insecure he almost is there. He's like, but remember that time I saved you from drowning before? And
Yeah,
she,
like he's so insecure. Like,
yeah, it's incredible. And his daughter says, this has happened 3 times already that he's been in her dream, and we see Nicolas Cage, who plays like Paul Matthews. He's a professor, and we see him in his college lectures, and his students barely take any notice of him. He plays this everyday nobody so well that he's just, as you said, so meek, so just like dour, sour professor.
a little bit reminded me almost of Paul Giamatti. In The Holdover is that little bit of the he didn't get to live up to his own expectations. Like, he was obviously had these great ideas and all the rest of it to write a book and to be this thing, and he didn't get it. Didn't get his due, and it reminded me a little bit of that, of that kind of that character. Not so much the performance, but the character. I really agree there, Daz. I think he's just I'm so surprised to see him play it so well. Like, if I was making this movie, I'm not sure Nicolas Cage is the person I would pick for it. It was making the movie, because I'm like, no, I need someone who's going to be able to play this downplay stuff. Maybe he's not the guy for it, and yet he fucking knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, you would gravitate to a Paul Giamatti or someone like that. If it's hard to kind of think of the movie without him in it, but
yeah,
you would pick somebody that I don't know, just after like some of Cage's recent movies where it's just, all those memes where it's just him fucking being an absolute maniac is what he does absolutely fantastically. But yeah, I think, he's just so captivating in this. We then learn that he's going to meet a former colleague of his who he thinks has stolen some of his ideas, and her work is soon to be published. And we get this sense that he really is not only insecure, but he's just resentful, and he's just a bit annoyed at where he is in life. That like all his friends and colleagues around him are pretty much been published, having articles and books and stuff, and he thinks that should be him, even though he hasn't even written a book yet.
That's the important hilarious thing, Daz, isn't it? Because he's bitter, but he hasn't actually put the work in.
He hasn't done anything.
He's trying to catch her out, saying that she's kind of used his work. And, he's recording the interview. But when she says, the stuff you're talking about is from fucking, back in her, before you were even qualified to do anything, back before you're now a tenured professor. And this is talking about stuff from decades ago. So he's obviously like, he's angry at the world that he's not a massive success, but yet he hasn't actually put the work in to be a success. And you see that a lot. People are angry at everybody, at the government, that it's always someone else's fault. Whereas this work was obviously good enough to be published because she's publishing it. He just didn't take the chance. Didn't follow it up himself. Yeah.
And and his wife actually mentions that when he's going to meet her, that he should record it on his phone because she wants to hear it for some reason. I didn't really understand that part. But when he does go and meet this ex-colleague, when he walks into the restaurant, the person greeting him at the restaurant is convinced she's met him before, and this is kind of foreshadowing to some of the events to come. And he records the meeting with this woman, with this former colleague, and he has this whole thing planned, that he's going to try and get her to give him a credit for his work and stuff. And it turns out that he ends up just begging for a credit and almost breaks down in tears. And I actually love this scene is intercut with a scene of him listening back to the recording on his phone later in his car, and completely embarrassed and kind of ashamed, and kind of get a glimpse into the turmoil inside this man. And it's another just like Nicolas Cage is acting without being Nicolas Cage in a sense. He's just so restricted, and it's almost he's just selling it with his eyes. He's just so the turmoil is just ever present. It's fantastic. And when he goes back to tell his wife, he says he didn't record the meeting because he doesn't want her to hear how the meeting went, and just lies to her and says, we just made progress in the meeting, blah, 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 moves on. We then get a scene where we see Nicolas Cage sitting amongst a crowd in a play, like just dejected and kind of lost in thought. And outside this play, he meets Claire, an old flame from college, who tells him she's been thinking about him a lot recently, and that he pops up in her dreams. And she describes the dream, and it's a similar thing where he's just doing nothing in the dream, just kind of ambling around. And there's some great social tension here as Paul's wife is by his side for this whole encounter, and they're exchanging numbers. And so, yeah, he meets Claire, and she asks if she can write about the whole dream thing because she finds it fascinating. And Paul even mentions to her that his wife thought Claire might have ulterior motives for all this, because he's almost so desperate for something meaningful to happen in his life, and he just comes across so flustered and all this. And again, it's another scene where I get what you were saying earlier on, where you're just thinking, fuck, he's just such a good actor. Right? Yeah. He's just nailing all of these scenes. But then things kind of ramp up a bit when he gets a call from a friend who says that two people at his dinner party had a recurring dream with him in it as well. And
how good is that? How good was that to see the friend, Dylan Baker? I haven't seen him in fucking ages.
Yeah. He's fantastic. And it's like, there needs to be more stuff, man.
Yeah, man. And some of the little smaller roles, like I haven't seen Tim Meadows. I don't think I've ever seen Tim Meadows play a serious role. Yeah. So it was great to see him, and obviously we'll mention later on, fucking Michael Cera's in this movie, and fucking Amber Midthunder is actually a very small part towards the end. Do you know Amber Midthunder? She's from
who's she?
She was in Legion, and she was the main character in Prey, that Predator movie.
Oh yeah, I never saw that actually. Is that any good?
Yeah, it's class. Yeah, but she only has a tiny little part in this, but it's just. Yeah, it's cool to see those people popping up in it. People like a couple of people I haven't seen and stuff in a while. But yeah, I love Dylan Baker, so it was great to see him.
Yeah, he pops up in another great scene later on. But following this, Paul checks Facebook and sees there's hundreds of people sending messages that they want to meet up and saying they're dreaming of him. And this is all following Claire's article that she published. He then does a TV interview about the whole thing, and this is another acting masterclass. You see, like, he's noticeably like loving the interview and being the subject of such a phenomenon. And the next time he goes into his college class, it's absolutely jam packed, and he's obviously like relishing the fame and attention. And he asks people, hands up, who has dreamt of him. And we get a number of hands, and then he decides to tries to look into this a bit more in the class, and he says, let's explore this, and we get some great visuals of the dreams here, and so creepy and cinematic. Like one of the students recounts their dream walking through the woods in a tux, eating mushrooms, being chased by some creepy fucking dude. And then we just get a shot of Nicolas Cage just ambling past, not a bother in the world. And another girl has experienced an earthquake, and again Nicolas Cage is there just kind of doing nothing. And yeah, he's absolutely loving it, and students are taking selfies with him, and his daughter even asks if he can drive her to school, and he's kind of becoming the cool dad, which is kind of cool. It's a nice turn, but things will take a turn quite swiftly following this. His wife even uses the kind of fame of her husband to get onto a new project at work, and they have a conversation in bed one night where she asks Paul why he isn't in her dreams, and they chat about her fantasy, like of being saved by him while wearing some oversized suit, the Talking Heads, which is I thought that was really, really cool. It's a lovely and funny exchange with them, and she's wonderful. You're a big fan of her.
Yeah, I think she's great. Yeah, and there's a lovely kind of relationship between the two of them. That some of the scenes that are just the two of them, especially towards the end, are some of my favorites in it.
Yeah.
It's just as so much emotion in the eyes and the kind of energy or lack thereof almost towards the end between them, and longing, and I think they were part of my favorite scenes were the ones where the two of them, they were in together. There was some great chemistry, I think, between the two of them.
Yeah, and even in that scene, like at the end of it, they get jiggy and all that, but you get the feeling that this kind of scenario doesn't happen too much with them, which is it's one of the more touching elements to the movie for me. When we get to it's why the ending works in my book. But we get first sign of things going awry, where late at night some dude breaks into their house and grabs a knife and enters their bedroom, saying he has to kill Paul, and he's just totally freaked out. The intruder collapses in tears, and that's the first instance of that kind of negative negative elements to fame with a home invasion, like a kind of a horror scenario. The cops suggest improving security now that he's famous. And this week, Tim Meadows is Paul's. Is he his boss, or he's the dean of the
Yeah, I
college?
think he's kind of the dean or something. Yeah.
And he suggests that Paul is just playing along with all this, believing all the bullshit. Paul says, even if it is bullshit, he says, why not? This scenario could be used to get a publisher for the book he hasn't written yet, which is fucking hilarious. But the dean asks him, like, is he having a midlife crisis? And it's one of my favorite lines. Nicolas Cage's retort, he's like, "Oh, come on, you're the one that just bought a fucking Kawasaki." Just like, okay, shut your fucking mouth. But it's here where we introduced to Michael Cera, who is one of the lead agents in an ad agency called Thoughts, which Paul has a meeting with, and they say they brand, or they pair brands with kind of peculiar celebrities, and even the PA of the company says in the lift on the way up to Nick or to Paul that he's even been in her dreams, and they're kind of intense or whatever, which we'll get to in a little bit. And he tells them about, or they ask him in the meeting, like, what his big dream is, and he tells them about writing a book and all that. But they chat about it for a bit, but then they pivot and pitch how about Sprite? We'll do a Sprite ad. He's like, no, I want to write a fucking book. But Michael Cera is, he says he wants to write a book, or he wants to be known not as, the dream guy. He wants to be known for his job. He said, I'm an evolutionary biologist. Michael Cera is great. He's just like, oh yeah, well, we can try to do something with the book. You want to do a book about plants, is it? And he's like, no, evolutionary biologist.
I said ants.
yeah, it's exactly. Just like, yeah, it's they don't really give a shit. It's just fucking ad agency. But the PA who was talking to Paul about her dream asked him out for a drink, and they meet for a drink, and she tells him about her dreams where he appears in her apartment and they have sex, and she says it's so intense. They end up getting drunk and going back to her apartment. She tries to reenact the dream with him standing in the shadows in the corner of her apartment. And Paul is very unsure about this, and he's, drunk, and he's just kind of going along with it. And it's so weird and so awkward. And she kisses him and tries to take his pants off, and he farts.
Yeah, like, I get the next part. She starts to go, and he lets her continue. You know what I mean? Unbuttoning his zip and everything else, and he ends up climaxing. And I think they could have done that without the farting. Like, I mean, had the climaxing thing would have been fine. That's the thing that you can play the scene on. I don't think there was a point in having the fart. Then it was like, what was the point of it? It just seemed like a weird cheap shot. If it happened to him in other parts of the movie, where, say, when he got really nervous, it happened, and some people that does genuinely happen, then you kind of go, okay, that's it. But it hasn't been referenced anywhere else. All of a sudden, I just didn't really fit for me.
It's because it's twice as well, which is like, I get it in the moment. You're just like, oh, it's very embarrassing, and he farts. But yeah, you're kind of going, it works so much more without that, because it's just that nervous fucking tension where he's just, he's gonna come or whatever, and it's like,
she's like this 30 years younger than him, absolutely gorgeous, woman is in the apartment saying
you don't need
that
the
she
cheap
wants to
jokes there.
Yeah, I think it was a bit weird. Well, I don't know her from anything, but I thought she was really good.
Brilliant,
Dylan Galula, I think her name is.
Yeah,
I thought she was quite good.
But yeah, after that, like, he gets up and leaves, and it's here where things kind of begin to shift. This time his daughter has another dream of him, but this time, instead of him standing idly by, he is barging into a room in a rampage. He then sees an article from I think it's Sheila, the person he had the meeting with to try and get a credit. He sees her article in a magazine, and it's an article about intelligence theory.
Yeah, because he's literally said that in the meeting. He's like, "Are you going?" Because he had come up with intelligence. It was his thing to come up with, and he asked her straight out, "Are you going to use it?" And she's like, "No, I'm not using it. I'm not."
Yeah.
And the article does come out, and like, not only has she used the work that he never bothered to capitalize on himself, but she's taken his term and everything. Like she obviously has, and he gets furious and he starts fucking tearing up the article.
Yeah,
And
he loses his
yeah,
fucking mind, and it's seemingly like as Paul starts to unhinge, the version of him in people's dreams seems to kind of follow suit. We see
yeah,
we see another dream where Paul visits a student dorm and asks to come in, and then he proceeds to strangle her. And we see another student walking in a hallway in a college, and Paul leaps out and beats him to death with a hammer. And it's pretty
that is
fucking,
graphic as
so
well.
graphic, just repeatedly
Yeah,
thumping him in the face. You know, where you just, instead of cutting away, we stay on it. It's
yeah,
pretty,
it's proper fucking whacking fucking head in the hand.
yeah,
Like, and
pretty
that's
fucking
it.
brutal.
Yeah, like his mood is reflecting obviously in the dreams. I
Yeah,
mean, that's obviously it's fairly they don't try to hide that. It's
yeah,
fairly thing. What I thought was interesting was I thought they were going to go another way a little bit with it because we get at the start. It's real. The fact that he's just standing around doing nothing in the
mm.
dreams beforehand is just that's what they're trying to say. That's what you've been doing in life. You've been standing around doing
Yeah,
nothing instead of getting your book. And it's fair enough. I mean, it's good. I thought maybe they might have done something with he had had this sexual experience with this beautiful younger
mm.
woman. I thought would a ton of people all of a sudden start having sex dreams, you know, because it would the
Yeah,
wife piece it together because he's going, hang on a second, people are getting really
yeah,
angry at you now. You're really angry and everybody else is dreaming angry. You were doing nothing and everyone else is dreaming doing nothing. What about
mm.
that time everyone was posting that you were you were fucking they were all super horny having sex dreams
Yeah,
about you,
yeah,
you know, like I thought they were going to go that direction, but it made it not that it would have made it any more interesting. I thought they were going to go down and start to explain the connection that me and you have just discussed, that
yeah.
his dreams are obviously affecting him, but they just decided to just leave it, you know, which is fine.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, and it's almost like, is it introspective? Is it how he sees himself? Is he annoyed at him? Is he angry at himself that he had this kind of sexual potential
Mm.
encounter or something like that? Or is he just enraged at the article? Like,
I think
it's
it's the
not really,
article.
yeah. And it just sends him over the top. And then we see we're back in one of his lectures, which were obviously previously full. Now with a mere handful of students, and things are obviously taking a turn. And his boss says students are not showing up for class, as his dream appearances have also tended to be like sexual or violent in nature. And his boss says they'll have to take it up with HR. He's just like, there is like he Nicolas Cage just portrays that kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just a dream. Like, how can I be responsible for a dream, and how can I be punished for a dream? And he says, you can't pause a semester because of fucking dreams. And what were your thoughts on that? Like the way
Yeah,
the
but
way they play that.
I think it's a real comment on people who
Mm,
get cancelled, you know,
yeah.
in today's culture for saying stuff that people don't like. He genuinely can't. Well, I mean, he probably could if he lightened up a bit. They probably have
Mm,
nicer dreams. But he, as far as he's concerned, and everybody knows, he can't. It's not his fault. He's in their dreams. He's not the one causing it. Yet everybody's angry and disgusted with him, and the
mm,
word, you know, unsafe gets thrown around. And it's just that's what you hear so much now, where people who don't share your view, you start to they get doxxed, reported, cancelled,
yeah.
and they lose their jobs because of their say political views or views on whatever it happens to
Mm,
be. And I really think that that's wrong. We should have be able to like have free speech and not people losing their livelihoods over that kind of stuff is ridiculous.
yeah.
Just disagree with somebody and move on, unless they're actually threatening somebody, being racist, homophobic, you know, violent towards them. I don't understand why we need people's lives need to be
Mm,
destroyed, and that's what it felt like here. He hadn't himself done anything to them. All this stuff
mm,
has happened in their imagination, in their dreams, but yet there's spray paint in his car.
mm,
People don't want him in fucking. We'll see another scene in the restaurant. You know,
mm.
there's people just don't want him. He's just become this absolute pariah over something he has no control over.
Exactly. And it's like it
And
asks
it's
that
just
question that if
yeah,
you were having recurring dreams in a violent nature of something that you was your professor or something like that, like could you sit in a room and separate that if it was happening? I mean, if it's a one time thing, we're talking about something online, but if it was something where every night when you go to sleep, this guy is fucking murdering you in your dreams, um, are you okay to kind of go, I don't want to go to class? But then on the flip side, it is where he hasn't fucking done anything. It's just like, I'm fucking sorry. And we'll get to where he gets to it I've been asked for apologies and stuff, but even the next scene with back to dinner party with Dylan Baker, and This is a dinner party he's been wanted to be invited to for a while, and when he arrives there, he asks if they're the first ones there. It turns out they're the only guests, and the vibe is completely tense between Paul, his wife, and Dylan Baker and his wife. And Dylan Baker's wife is noticeably uneasy, and Paul's wife asks, are you still doing your pottery? And she almost chokes at that line, starts to cry, and leaves the table. And we get kind of flashes of Paul strangling her at her pottery class or pottery workplace. And the dinner is then cancelled, and Dylan Baker's character asks him to you have to leave, and he's just like, why do you think no one else is fucking here, man? And
Yeah, but I love that before we get to that, like he does have that desperation you said at the start, as like there's, even though no one else is there, he has wanted this. He wants to get introduced to these other people who are in his field and all that kind of stuff. That even when you're one who has his wife who has visibly shaken, has to leave the dinner table. Did he still like, well, the three of us, he's like, the three of us can still have it. It's like, so of course you fucking can't. Like, you should straight away, your reaction should be like, okay, we'll leave, whatever. But he's just like, the three of us can still have a good time. We don't have to let this, this ruin it. Your traumatized wife ruin it, and it's just, he just wants it to go away, and for him to have that experience, even though it's not going to happen. It's just now him, his wife, and the guy who owns the house. The influential people he wants to meet aren't there. But it's just, there's something so sad about it.
It's, sad is the word that just comes to mind, that he's just so desperate for anything. He's kind of just got a glimmer of this kind of life that he wants to lead. But back at the college, like, the students are now going into cognitive behavioral therapy, which doesn't go very well. And they end up that scene with the car where he goes outside and Losers spray painted on his car. That's one of those scenes where I'm just kind of going, like, that's a bit fucking much. You know what I mean? He hasn't. Yeah. That scene, like with the farts earlier on, I think it could have done without that scene, because it's just that whole, what I was saying about the students, their right to kind of go, I don't want to go to class because this guy, it is a traumatic thing, that suddenly it goes to them students being assholes and just spray painting his car. And it's like, there's no need for that. And he obviously freaks out. They follow him out to the car, and he's like, who the fuck did this and whatever. And they're shouting, why don't you just quit, Paul? And thought that's what I preferred, when you're on the fence between what's happening, rather than drilling that home that the students are a bit bunch of dicks in the scene, which I didn't really like that. But he's then put on suspension from college. And at home, the family dinner is very tense, as his daughter tells him that, like, thousands of people on Twitter telling about their nightmares about him, and people are calling him Freddy Krueger at school, and it is kind of horrifying when and again, Nicolas Cage portrays this brilliantly, of you like, what can you do? Like, and his wife has taken off her project and work, and his life is falling apart at the seams, and she's his wife is even saying, like, why don't you make an apology video? And again, just like, what the fuck do I have to apologize for? Like, fuck off. You know what I mean? It's the escalation in his character is sublime.
But that apology video scene is like that part is fantastic, because it's
amazing.
Such, you see that now. You see now, if some fucking celebrity makes a cock up, and it's just a meme on that. Some celebrity makes a cock up now or does something, they come out with a video, and most of the time, when these come out, they're semi-apologizing. They're basically saying, I'm the victim here. I know some people did, a lot of people have been saying it, but they basically, it's never an apology. Like, you always hear these things, they're never an actual apology. It's them talking about how they are the real victim here. And this is exactly how Nicolas Cage plays it. And Julianne Nicholson comments on it as well. Julianne comments on it as well, saying it's embarrassing. Like, every part of it, it's not an apology. It's a poor me victimization thing that you're doing. And you can tell it, even when he's playing it, you can see it. You're like, he's like, I'm just like you. I'm living it as well. Because at this point, he's had a dream of himself killing himself.
Yeah.
Again, like, it's obviously, it's a commentary. It's with so much. This movie is a commentary on modern society. But yeah, I did really, really enjoy that. It's just him in front of the screen having that very fake breakdown.
Absolutely.
It's great. But,
am I not a victim in all this? And he's just. Yeah. Is it fair that I should be punished for this? And it's fucking, but it's exceptional. It's Nicolas Cage at full tilt. He's incredible. And the journey to that apology video from where he is at the start of the movie is just fucking sublime. But like even before that, you mentioned the diner scene. Before that apology video, yeah, he's in a diner, and we get another sad scene where he's just asked to leave because people are uncomfortable that he's in the diner, and he's like, fuck this, and someone comes over and spits in his food and throws the food back at the guy, and then he's obviously gets fucking beaten up because of it, and it is
But
very
it's that
sad.
word again, isn't it? It's that word they use in it. They say unsafe.
Yeah.
And it's a word we hear thrown around left, right, and center by people who are they feel unsafe because a library stocks a certain book that's against their views, or I feel unsafe online because of X, Y, and Z. You're not unsafe in any way. There's nothing here, and it's such a word that's thrown around because we don't want anybody to feel unsafe, and it has such connotations to it that Jesus, I wouldn't want anybody to feel that they're in a position where they feel unsafe. But it's been cheapened by people saying stuff like, I mean, he's sitting there, he's reading a book and he's eating some chips, like he's not doing anything. And it's these two women on a table across the way who have asked the waitress to come over and say they need him to leave because they feel unsafe. And it's like, he's never hurt, as far as anybody's concerned, he's never hurt anybody. He's only hurt you in your dream. Yet because you feel unsafe, he needs to get out of it. He hasn't broken any laws. And again, it's just, I felt infuriated for him.
Oh yeah.
I was totally on his side, kind of like, what, you fucking assholes, he can't do anything about it. But again, he's not in my dreams killing me. So,
it's just fucking heart wrenching, and you can understand the frustration and how you'd fucking lose your mind if that was happening. And again, Nicolas Cage, we'll say it for the 100th time, just plays it so fucking well. But we'll move on then to the school play. Like earlier on in the movie, he was asked by one of the teachers to not attend his daughter's school play because, again, unsafe and just people would be uncomfortable. And at this point, he's just like, fuck this. So he arrives at the school and they call security, and then he struggles at the theater entrance with one of the teachers who doesn't let him in, and they kind of struggle, and the door accidentally closes on her finger, which breaks it, a lot of blood. And everyone in the auditorium stops, turns around at her scream, and they can see her just standing there with a bloody finger. And Nicolas Cage, who he could dress a little less like a haunting fucking killer, in his parka jacket and stuff. She claims that he attacked her, and he's like, I just want to see my daughter, play. And he's subdued by a number of parents, and we get a shot of his daughter Sophie on stage in tears, and it's just fucking heartbreaking. You're seeing your father succumb to this state, you know what I mean? And follow, what were your thoughts on the school play scene?
Yeah, it was nice. It was the kind of the final nail in the coffin of people it's been just in dreams so far, and people were found, but now he's apparently physically actually hurt someone, and again, she said, he attacked me. And, I'm sure in a normal scenario, if he wasn't in her dreams, I don't think she would have said those words. I think she's must have had dreams about him, has this stuff in her head as him as a villain, that it just is normal accident of him trying to push the door while her trying to close it, and her finger gets caught. It's not an attack, but that's how she views it, because she's already got this view of him as this monster who's been doing God knows what to her each night when she falls asleep, It's it's a cool scene, and I guess it is. Yeah, it's the kind of the final part where this is the kind of flick over into the last kind of act of the movie, really.
Yeah, and then following this, then we learn that Paul has vanished, and that a new breakthrough in dream science has been developed, advertising in your dreams. And this is where we get our kind of piss take of the world of social media influencers. We're introduced to the dream house full of dreamfluencers, which was a bit of a mad section of the movie. We're told there's a Norio device that now helps users dream travel into someone else's dream, and there is a funny moment of this where the CEO of the company in the ad is demonstrating the Norio kind of bracelet thing, and he's saying, the voiceover says, it may look like Brian is just resting now, but he is actually in the dream of a random 19-year-old boy in South Korea. I really enjoyed that.
This is one of the parts I really didn't like. Because like the film decides not to tell us why it's affected by Paul and his mood and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. We don't find that out, and for this thing to come in, and not much time has passed because we see the girls. He's going in to find his new apartment because he's
Yeah.
not living with the wife anymore, and he's got the two girls are pretty much exactly the same. So not much time has passed. They mentioned that in the kind of cut to this
Yeah.
device, but somehow we've jumped into this insane bit of technology that isn't even connected to your head. It goes on
Yeah.
your wrist and is able to, like, surely that's something that's fucking, no one knows why he's able to do this. Scientists around the world are stumped. They even say that in one of the TV interviews. Yet in a very short time period, there's now a device that people can buy, and it says that the ad, what's what the version with ads is free. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
people have jumped to this incredibly technology advanced thing that allows people to go into each other's dreams, and advertisers can go in and stuff. It's such a giant stretch, but it's also that why not give us the explanation then beforehand, because we still don't get it. We still just go, they explain it away by saying, Paul kind of showed us, we always thought that maybe there was a communal link between people's consciousness, and Paul just showed us that, yeah, it actually is true. Well, okay, well, maybe he did, maybe if that's what you want to say, but the movie needs to explain that more, and they can't go from this tiny little thing of not having a clue what's going on to being able to harness it into this device. I just think it changed the tone of the movie for me, because up until then I was still totally intrigued about where it was going to go, and this just seemed like a cheap direction to go for me.
Yeah, 100%. I get where he was trying to go for it, the director, in the script, what he's trying to touch on, but it's dialed up to 11, and it's too much of a stretch. It's too far-fetched technology. It just feels like, is this fucking 2 years later? Is it 5 years later? Or and it's very not some slapstick, but it's the satire is through the fucking roof in this part. I think they could have dialed it back to, like, instead of 11, dial it back to 2, and maybe have a comment on, maybe something about influencers or social media that are kind of tapping into this and using it for their own gain or something, as influencers do, and self-serving. But yeah, it was a bit kind of, what the fuck is happening here? And I fully expected, is this, as you're saying, is this a jump into the future? Like, what the fuck is happening here? It's just kind of too much is happening in the scene. But when it cuts back, from that, we find that Paul visits his wife, and this is a lovely scene. Like he says, he's in a publishing deal now, and he's off to France for a month, and it's a lovely moment where he says goodbye to his wife, and it looks like they hold hands and hug and have a laugh, but then it kind of cuts back to reality. It's
just a few seconds of him, reaching out and holding her hand, and the hug and stuff like that, and it's just a small, tiny little thing, and then we cut back to reality, and it's like, oh no. it was very touching for such a super short scene. It was really touching.
But cuts back to reality. That never happened. He just gets a cold goodbye from her. Wonderful, but kind of gut wrenching. And we're then in France, and we're on there's a photo shoot for his new book, and he's asked to wear a metal Freddy Krueger glove. Fucking doesn't want to. And it's just like, it's even now that he has his book launch, it's still quite pathetic as the book launch goes tits up, because book launch is actually in the basement of the bookstore because they're double booked or something. And there's comments on the book is much thinner than he expected. A lot was lost through translation, somebody mentions. And they actually got the French title. The French title that he wanted it to be called, Dream Scenario, is it's translated into I Am Your Nightmare. A slight, translation error there. And adding to the madness then when he's signing the books, like fluorescent light falls and cracks him over the head. And it's just, even his dream, for his big dream that was asked him in the advertising agency, even when he kind of gets that, it's still quite pathetic. And we get a final scene then. This is my favorite scene. This beautiful scene showing seemingly Paul entering his wife's dream or something like that. You see him actually lying in the bed beforehand with one of those Noria devices on. But in his dream, he's saving her from being burnt alive, and all the while dressed in that comically oversized suit. Harking back to their comments in bed about her fantasy. And then they walk down the street together holding hands, and Paul says to his wife, I wish this was real. And then he begins to float up into the sky holding her hand, and then you see her hand lose grip, and that's cut to black. And that was, for me, that scene, I was just like, oh, that was fucking... I thought that
I
was
think
beautiful.
when I said ending, I guess I more meant the turn that it takes with the Norio stuff, everything. That wasn't for me. But no, the ending scene is beautiful, and it's actually a hopeful note, because when they're talking about what her sexual fantasy might be, as you said, she says what it is, and so even though we get to have heartbreak, oh, they're not together, he is after going into one of her dreams. So even though they're not together, she is having that dream about him. When you asked her what her fantasy would be, and she mentioned, I need to be saved from something, and you would come in this suit. There was always something about where you looked in that suit. And
it's gorgeous.
So even though they're not together, and they're living separately and all the rest of it, she is still dreaming about him, and so it kind of does leave it in that little bit of a hopeful note, because everything from almost 20 minutes in is just fucking downhill for him. So it kind of that I loved it. I thought that was a really lovely scene between the two of them. The comically large talking heads,
it's just
suit.
It's just great.
It's a lovely last scene. I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, so I loved the movie. Even though there are bits where I kind of went, like the influencers bits in the third act, and the double fart sound effect could have been taken out. But I loved pretty much all of the rest of it. I thought it was an acting masterclass by Nicolas Cage. Thought it was really well written. I loved how it touched on cancel culture and just what you would do in this fucking scenario. I loved I thought the editing was really good. It was a lot of kind of off kilter edits, like when he's in the play, where he's downtrodden at the start of the movie, that like as the crowd applause, they cut like a second after that, and it's all this kind of off kilter editing, which I thought just really kind of puts you on edge ever so slightly without being completely noticeable. But really loved it. Just Nicolas Cage, he's just fantastic. I think and to think that movies like this, when they're filmed out of sequence, all the time, I always find it astonishing when people have really crazy character arcs, how they can actually turn up, day 2, no, this is page 100 of the script, you're kind of unhinged here, or you're 70% unhinged. How they can actually do that to such a level where when it's played, for you on screen, that it's so fucking seamless, and he's mesmerizing. I'm going to go back and watch every fucking movie I've missed in recent years.
And he's not even executive producer; he's down as producer on this. And I think Ari Aster was one of the producers as well,
which is fucking great.
Which is great. I mean, like I said, there's a lot that I really did enjoy, but most of it revolves around him. I love the idea of it. I think it's such an interesting idea to do, and I think it got me thinking a lot about fame in general. Good and bad, whether you're fame or infamous. Like as human beings, until we started working on media and all the rest of it, I mean, fame was mostly figures of power, kings, queens, all that kind of stuff. But there's no other part in nature where one particular being is just huge and famous for being famous, where eyes are constantly on you at all times, where you don't it's not a normal thing. It's no wonder that celebrities like singers blah blah have breakdowns. As human beings, we're not meant to have fucking eyes watching everything we do, and social media has obviously jumped that up. We're not meant to have laser focus on us all the time. Every slip up we make is fucking we're destroyed for. People think that people who are famous have it easy, but they have to live with this. Every part of their life has to be perfect, or they get destroyed in the media. And to have those constant eyes on you, you never get to have a normal life again because of this. Like, your life has changed forever. There's no just popping down to the shop. There's no walking the dog without photos of you and hassling you and company and stuff like that. So it made me think a lot about that, how even those people who want it for the right reasons find it difficult to handle. Whereas this guy who, wanted the fame maybe for being an author or whatever, is now getting his fame because he's been killing people in their dreams, and how that must feel so isolating. And, we're not, as human beings, we're not built for that. Our psyche is not ready for that. And I just found that it really made me start to think more about that. It's like it's a super interesting movie. It's yeah, I guess as I said, just for the reasons that I gave, that I didn't quite hit the levels for me that it did for you.
Yeah.
But it's like I definitely recommend it. 100%. I think
me too.
it's one of those performances that, even though I'm not mad in the movie, it wasn't as mad on it as you were. I would go back and watch it to watch him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one to. It's one of his best performances I've seen in quite some time, and I need to go back and watch some of his more recent stuff. But yeah, incredibly thought provoking. Thought it was very clever. Cinematography was really good. The sound design is great. Cast, like it's such.
Cast is great, and
it's the Nicolas Cage movie, but the rest of them are phenomenal.
But like you said, the Michael Cera and the Tim Meadows and stuff, like they're so unexpected. And to see, and Michael Cera looks like a grown man, which I've never seen him look like.
I know, yeah.
So that was great. Yeah, I just did want to say, because before this is not related to this movie, but Nicolas Cage's upcoming movie, The Surfer, he got a 6-minute standing ovation at Cannes.
Wow.
But what makes me interested to see that is I'm pretty sure he's playing an Australian in it. So I'm looking forward to hearing that accent. That should be good.
Cool. So yeah, that's my recommendation from that. Actually, definitely get out and see it if you can. Very thought provoking movie with a stellar performance from Nicolas Cage. So I'd give it 4 stars, me personally.
I'd probably go slightly lower and go maybe 3 to 3.5, kind of for me. But again, like one of the good 3.5. So it's definitely one to check out. Even just to get you thinking.
Absolutely.
Like we had our good, say, 3-star movie with Boy Kills World, because it's just fucking mayhem, and I just want to shut my brain off, and I'll probably never watch it again, or if I do, it'll be in the background. Whereas this is one of those movies that does get you to think, which is always welcome.
Happy days.
So cool. I guess that's it then. We'll wrap up for our movie review, and we will close off our episode. So I suppose, as always, just to ask people to like and subscribe and share and watch, of course, and listen. Is there anything else, Daz, from yourself before we finish up?
No, just keep the feedback coming. Email us at middleagedgeeks@yahoo.com and like and subscribe as much as you can. Happy days.
Yeah. Cheers, Daz, and cheers everyone for listening, watching, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
See you later.